Hey, everybody, welcome back to Self Performance Solutions, our wonderful podcast about all things Amazon, crazy selling tactics, techniques, trends, lots of interesting keywords. Today with Elizabeth Greene of Junglr. Thanks for coming on and just diving into it. And maybe you've done a few podcasts. I know you do a lot of content. You have a lot of conversations about this. Maybe you've had this question before, but how does it impact your core services, expertise, advice to people when there are pieces of chaos elsewhere in the selling system, let's call it? So like tons of craziness around FBA reimbursement claims. They make announcements about that. They make announcements about, hey, make sure your listings are 100% kosher. Things like get rid of the word warranty, get rid of the word guarantee, get rid of emojis. These are things that have always been present, but now they're like assigning a deadline to it. And then if you want to even go past that 2-3 months ago, talk about the fees going up. And there was an uproar about how much the fees were. So like every other month these days, it seems like there's a new injection of chaos into selling on Amazon. What's the immediate impact? Do people start changing how they decide things around what you do with them? Or do they say, let's just wait and see? What's the immediate impact on what you do for people?
Yeah, maybe we can talk about immediate impact just in general, things that I'm hearing, and then we can definitely talk about like our specific client base as well and how we help our sellers sort of navigate, like you said, the tumultuous waters of Amazon. I'm like, let's be real, like it's always been like back old school, whenever they took away search find buys, everybody's head exploded. Everybody thought, how in the world am I going to do my business? And yet still here we are. And I don't see Amazon going anywhere. So eventually we'll say, and still here we are 2 years in the future, and there'll be something else coming up that's making our heads spin.
Right.
But the one thing, and it was very important on a conversation I had with some sellers this morning, and they were speaking about this, like, yeah, is the inventory fees going up, storage fees going up with all of the other fees and everything else, that's been taking out of their bottom line. They're like, well, we feel like our ad spend is the one thing that we can control. And so although, like, yes, you absolutely 100% can control it, right? You can go in and turn it off today. Congratulations, you just received money back in profits. And then tomorrow you're going to wake up to less sales, right? I think all sellers are very much aware of how ads can drive sales, how ads drive organic rank. But when they're stuck between this rock and a hard place of things that are completely outside of their realm of control, like ads is the one thing I control. But then again, the market's getting more competitive. And to be honest, I really do feel for sellers. I very much feel for sellers and sort of the current climate and how that they have to navigate these things. And so something that I'm really, really pushing on my team and having these conversations, even myself with clients, is what are the roadblocks that you guys are up against? Because when it comes to ad strategy or just sellers in general, they'll say like, okay, I need to lower my costs. So oftentimes they'll come to, oh, I think this needs to happen. So this is my perceived solution to this. And my advice when approaching anything, honestly, in business is if it touches on something that you feel is outside of your realm of expertise, even if it's just to have the conversation. Not necessarily to try and engage somebody's services, just feeling it out, because the conversations that I'm having is like, okay, what's on the line? We had a conversation with a seller recently and they were saying like, what they are trying to do is like, oh, we need some projected sales revenue. Like, that's fine. What are we shooting for in sales? How are we shooting for this growth? And then they're saying, well, we need this projected revenue so we can figure out our cash flow. So let's back up a little bit. Let's have a different conversation. What's going on in the business right now? Oh, we're funded and we're looking at our current run rate and we're looking at the ads that we need to sustain the sales growth projection that we're telling you we have. And it's not because it's bad to try and have sales growth projection, but that wasn't actually the right question.
Right.
What I find now is a lot of sellers, they're sort of jumping to what they think is the solution instead of trying to find a better question. So what I've been constantly trying to consult with my brands or anyone who comes to me or wants to have a conversation around ads is taking a step back and say, all right, let's talk about a better question, right? So I had a conversation with the brand today and they're saying, okay, we're struggling with this and ACOS and we're struggling with this because of total ACOS. Okay, got it. What are you guys hoping that improved numbers is going to help you achieve? Well, we're self-funded. And so if we don't hit these profitability metrics, we're looking at next year, we're not going to have the cash flow to launch the additional products we need for the growth. Oh, okay. So it's not a growth problem. It's a profit problem, which will then lead to growth. So profits are the priority.
Right. Nothing
And
can
it's
be
just,
taken out of context really at this point.
yeah,
Right?
yeah,
Yeah. Because if they make less, I mean, we end up talking to people about it. They say, well, we didn't get as much in sales from this particular ASIN. And now Amazon's talking about suspending the ASIN, but maybe that's not our biggest problem. I mean, of course, now
hmm
sellers understand that it still hurts your account health. Even if you don't care
yeah,
about that ASIN, even if it's not that lucrative, you still have to deal with it. Like in the old
yeah,
days, maybe you could ignore it and get back to it. You can't really afford to do that anymore, but nothing happens in a vacuum anymore. Because if they're not
no,
selling that ASIN or they're not appealing it and getting it reinstated, even for that smaller amount of revenue from that one listing, it hurts their ability to do other things elsewhere in the business. So everyone
yeah.
has to have like a holistic approach now,
I know
right?
it is really, really unique because in business, everything touches everything, right? Like it always does. But I think that's really, really apparent on the Amazon platform because it is within their own platform. So like you're saying, account health is something to keep in mind when you're
Yeah.
looking at inventory. Long-term storage fees is something to take into account when you're doing cash flow. And I think in any other businesses, even e-com, like you still have these pieces that touch each other, but it's not so all encompassing because it's not all directed through this exact same platform.
Right. Right. And yeah, if you don't sell through inventory quickly, that's another issue.
Yeah.
So
I
not
know
only do you have
now
to
if you don't
sell it
sell too
out,
much or you sell too little, yeah, it's I
yeah,
do not envy those trying to figure out the inventory right now.
it's tough. And then people that err on the side of more inventory, Prime Day's coming up, Q4 is coming up, more inventory, need more,
hmm
can't run out of inventory. And then if it gets suspended, you're like, I'm stuck with all this inventory. And
Yes.
Amazon's communication around appeals has gotten so much worse this year. They don't even give people the right suggestions for how to get restrictions lifted quicker. Like it'd be one thing if their instructions were a certain way, and then maybe you didn't do enough good job appealing. But it's like, well, if you're not communicating, you almost have to read their minds, then do the appeal, then it gets rejected, read their minds again. And it's such a burden to sellers, the mental, the psychological piece of making the right guess in advance, being right often enough. If you're wrong, fixing it quickly. I mean, is it
Mhm.
kind of the same with, it seems like it's the same with what you do in terms of like, don't
Yeah,
guess wrong too
there's
many times. And if you do guess wrong, fix it quickly, figure it out quickly and fix it quickly. Is that kind of the same?
yeah, I mean it's definitely the buzzword, of course, which I think in a lot of scenarios, is optimize. We're gonna optimize,
Right.
right? It's true, right? If accounts could be set up once, select the exact right bid, and then it always performs at that same level, 100%, I'd be out of a job, right?
Yeah.
But it is that constant ongoing test. And I've been thinking through some stuff, and it's like, it's really at the end of the day, when it comes to good advertising, it's good spend management is really what it is. That's a lever that we can control, which is also a very, very important lever when they're looking at their bottom line. Like a couple of brands I talked to, they're like, hey, after cost of goods and our payroll, ads are our business biggest expense, right? So if that's not spent well, that's something that could have tremendous growth impact for the brand, or it can devastate the brand.
Yeah.
And the thing that makes it so difficult to understand, where is that line? Where does it fall? How far do you go before that becomes a problem? Is because there's an impact of the market and an impact of consumer behavior on what we're doing. Have some amazing friends in the ad space. Love them to death. They're talking about like the revenue per click model.
Right.
It's a bid management if you want to get into it. It's not complicated. It's just saying like, hey, if this is the cost I want to hit, this is what my bid needs to be. And you can run that calculation and congratulations, that's your ideal bid. And I say, you're not wrong. You're not wrong. What you're not factoring in is, can you get any impressions at that bid? And so that's actually the struggle that we're up against, because I do a live Q&A every Thursday and I get this question very often. Oh, how do you rank products? I'm like, it's not hard. I'll tell you how to do it. You go in and you find the keyword you want to rank on. You put it in an exact match. You put it in a sponsored product ad. jack that bid up so you get top of search and you run it.
Mhm.
That's how you impact ranking with ads.
Makes
But that's not the
sense.
actual question. Talking about
Right.
asking better questions. The actual question is, how can I rank my products without going out of business? That's a different question. That's more nuanced. Takes a little bit more finesse to be able to do that.
Right. Just how many discounted products you can offer before you start losing too much money. Like you're
Yep.
losing money to gain money, but where's that line?
Yeah.
Right. So in terms of like, you set things up for Q4, we're knocking on the door right now. It's not that far away. You make an error in judgment or an error in calculation or whatever it is. Can you make a quick correction so that it doesn't undo your whole plan for October, November, December? Is that harder to do now than it was in the past? Is it the same? Is it easier? Do we have more tools open to us?
I mean, so the thing with ads is if you have somebody who actually give a crap and is in the account and understands the account, changes can be made quite quickly, which is great, which makes it a very enticing lever to pull on hard, right? It's like, this is too high. Like, jack it down, jack it up, right? The problem, again, that we're up against is the reverberating impacts of changes that are made too quick. And the reason for those impacts is because advertising helps with your organic ranking. So lowering of BFSR, increasing it, right? You pull that lever too hard, you lose that momentum. And sometimes if it's lost too much, it can be very difficult to bring back.
Interesting.
And so it's not that, again, it's like the revenue per click model. I can go in and I love math. I love spreadsheets, right? I can go and I can run those calculations all day long. If we get this, if we get this, if we get this, this is this. I mean, like, I recently just did a coaching call with a lot of my team members, like coaching them, like, hey, here's how you do forecasting, right? It's math, right? We can plug in the numbers, you put in this, you get this. Problem with that is I'm saying I'm going to put in this in the terms of conversion rate, this in terms of cost per click. Is that actually what the market is going to give? That's the variable that makes it so tricky. And so when it comes to going into Q4, what we have found is that the more solid your numbers are with going into it, the more you can be certain of the outcomes and more certain of your decisions. And that's where it can be easy and or really, really hard is how much data certainty do I have around my decision making? And so I always coach brands. I'm like, hey, if you want to run good Q4 advertising, now is the time to start testing.
Yeah,
you should not be testing days before Black Friday. If you said that product that I keep meaning to get those campaigns up and I haven't tested it, there's that one keyword I know I want to see how I do on that. You know, I've been meaning to test out sponsored display ads, all those things you've been meaning to. Like, now's the time to test it because you have more time to figure it out and you have more time to get that data certainty. And what we find really good Q4 ads are building off all of that certainty that we were able to gain pre-season.
Makes sense. What are the kinds of ideal clients that you have that you work with? I mean, what are the people that you don't want to work with? Or if you don't want to say it that way, the people that you think you won't achieve the results that you'd like to achieve because of reluctance on their part? I mean, what are the tendencies of people who are not kind of looking at it the right way?
I would say if I had to pinpoint one thing that I think makes a successful Amazon seller in general, I would say it's the sellers who can take it on the chin and say, what can I do about it? The ones that have struggled are the ones who are unwilling to see there's something that can or should be fixed. You probably run up against it.
Well, like resistance to change, which is common throughout business, right?
Right. I don't know if it's resistance to change or resistance to look at maybe a potential reality. And I'm not saying I'm right all the time. We're not listing optimization specialists. It's not part of our offering. But we can read a report and we can check conversion rates. We know how to read conversion rates and we know how to pull conversion rates versus the market, right? So if you're telling me, hey, we want to go aggressive after this market, we want to grow our market share here, great. Conversion rate doesn't stack up. Things that optimize conversion rate, other products offer. Part of that is reviews, right? New products aren't going to have reviews. There's all kinds of things. There's quite a few things that could be looked at. One of them, of course, being the listing. So it's like, obviously, we're not the specialists. We can absolutely connect you with somebody who is. You have somebody on your team, fantastic. We can pull the ad data. We can give you an idea of the keywords that are converting best for your products. And we will do our best to support you here. And it's like, oh, no, listing is optimized. It's great. Okay. But is there a way that we can say, well, this data is telling me at least something isn't converted? Maybe your listing is fantastic, but I would argue if you're not converting at a higher rate than some of your competitors, there's something that can be done. So instead of saying, oh, what do you think? Is there anything you've seen in the market? Hey, how can we go look at competition? What are they doing? Is there any way we can QA this? That's not the problem. Maybe it's more of a refusing to even consider that something might potentially be an issue. I'm not saying it is. I'm not saying it isn't, but for me, I do this all the time, right? I'm in business with my husband's my business partner, right? He'll say all the time, do you think this? I'm like, give me 2 weeks and I'll be like, shoot. If I would have admitted you were right 2 weeks ago, I would have saved myself a world of pain. You know what? That was a really good perspective on something in the moment, I didn't want to admit it was potentially. So I'm just saying, whenever you say oh, what can I do about it? What can I change? I knew these inventory fees are a problem. Is there a system? Is there something? And recognizing you might have a bad situation now and your future might not look exactly what it used to look like. There's a way to pivot with it. And I think the sellers that I find struggle to make the most are the ones who are 5 years ago, we used to do this and we just can't seem to get back there. And it's the market. It's anything external. And I'm not saying there's not external factors. Don't get me wrong.
Always are. Yeah.
So many external factors, but it's instead of saying what can I do about it? And so it's okay, so you did that 5 years. Great. What have you, oh no, we haven't really tested pricing. We haven't really seen if we can get better from our suppliers. We haven't done anything with the listing.
Yeah.
It's well, markets change, right?
We have an interesting mix. It's a combination of the realist and then on one end of the spectrum, the rose-colored glasses brands. And then on the other, the doom and gloom, right? So the realists are kind of right in the middle, which is where most of our, I guess we've been lucky, most of our brand clients land. But what makes it interesting, but also difficult and creates adversity is Amazon's constantly throwing people curveballs, Predictability is tough. There are things, this is one reason I stopped doing the beginning of the year predictions. I mean, those are fun. And I'll do them if we're just talking because we're shooting the breeze and it's fun. But serious predictions are almost impossible because Amazon likes to change their mind. They like to say they're going to do things in the fall and then you expect them to roll them out in the spring and it doesn't roll out until the next fall. I mean, there's tons of examples. My favorite was the seller support escalation promise that they made at Amazon Accelerate. I think it was in 2022 and it didn't really happen. They didn't even bring it up for 9 months. And then as soon as they brought it up, it was a hot topic for the typical news cycle. And then how many people talk about that now? It's just so difficult to predict. And then sometimes brands or sellers don't want to hear from a consultant well, we're going to prepare for all outcomes because that's a ton of work. It's a ton of thinking and it requires a perspective shift. So that's why it's great to have these conversations in August and not September and October, right?
Yeah, no, definitely. Yeah, I think that's really what I've seen is I think the deciding factor, the thing that's most useful, again, for our brains, I keep beating that drum and I feel like I'm beating a dead horse at some point, but it's it's really going back to what are your specific goals? Not just, oh, I want to become a 7-figure brand. That's great. Right. How do you want to get there? Are we doing it through launching new products? Are we doing it with your current inventory? Oh, well, actually, this product's a bestseller and I have 2 more in the pipeline. Great. Okay. It's talking through that because a lot of sellers all talk to you and they'll say, oh, we want to grow sales. Fantastic. It's awesome. How much do you want to grow them? And upon initial question, some brands have a very defined idea and a lot of brands I find don't. And that's fine. And sometimes I myself as a business owner, you almost don't want to say it because you feel oh, that's I don't know. Sometimes
it's
you
building deadlines and benchmarks.
Yeah, but you'll ask them and they'll say, oh, and I said, well, growth can look anywhere from a 5% to a double or triple, right? what would make you happy? Oh, okay. Like, I think we're at about a steady 20% growth. Great. Okay, cool. How fast do you want to get there? Oh, you want to get there tomorrow? Great. How do you feel about tripling your ad budget? No?
Exactly.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Then let's have another conversation about, and what I find is it's just working through those questions. And then you finally, as you get through all those questions and you say, okay, given that you told me this and this and this and this and this, great. Here's the ad roadmap that'll help us build that.
Such an exciting process.
I honestly love it though. I think that's probably my favorite.
You've been doing it for
having
a
the
while.
conversations.
You've been doing it for a while now. How far in are you?
Yeah, we're going on 6 or 7 years now.
Oh, great.
It's been a hot minute.
Yeah. Great. All right. Elizabeth Greene of Junglr. Where can people reach you if they have questions, comments, want to discuss business with you? Best place to find you?
Yeah, so the best place is going to be our website, which is junglr.com, junglr.com.
Sweet. Thanks for talking to me today. And everyone, thanks for listening to Seller Performance Solutions. We'll catch you next time.